the main thing is to get your foot in the door first. So I don't care if it's coming in the door sweeping the floor. Welcome to Debt Free in IT. I'm your host, Mike. This podcast is for anyone who's looking to get into the IT industry, whether it's for a career change or you're just interested. I think you come to the right place. Are you looking to break into the IT industry and you're not sure if you should start with networking or cybersecurity? Well, today I'm going to break down the differences between the two. I'm also going to compare the daily task, the path one may take to get to these positions, the work style, and then also the potential for remote work within these two positions. So let's get to it. So you may be asking yourself, especially if you're completely new to this or you're in the beginning of your transition, what exactly is networking and what exactly is cybersecurity? So basically, networking is the process of connecting computers, devices, and systems together so they can communicate and share resources. So it pretty much involves designing, setting up, managing, troubleshooting. In networking, we deal a lot with routers, switches, some firewalls. Sometimes security may deal with some of those things, but you get what I'm saying. So some firewalls and other equipment that make up the local and global networks. And then cybersecurity is basically the practice of protecting systems, network, and data from digital attacks, unauthorized access, and damage. It includes everything from setting up firewalls and encryption, monitoring threats, and responding to incidents like malware and data breaches. So cybersecurity may be, if you're in the beginning of your transition, you probably heard more about cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is usually what you see advertised the most. So cybersecurity, whenever you're online and you're looking around on YouTube, you're looking at different other podcasts, you're looking at influencers, a lot of times you see cybersecurity is usually the one that you hear tell of that comes with the bag. And by the bag comes with a high salary. If I had to break down networking and cybersecurity in layman terms, basically one department or one team networking builds the network while the other team protects the network, the security side. So one builds it, one protects it. So depending on the organization, you can see the duties of networking and also the duties of cybersecurity or security. You could see them intertwined a little bit. So it's not uncommon to have a networking team that handles a lot of the security aspect too, especially in small environments. And if you're in an environment where I say is less than maybe 5,000 users, you could possibly have your networking team and your security team pretty much be one team, where if someone's on that team, they're basically doing a little bit of both. So this, like I said, this all depends on the teams. Usually larger environments, you'll see it more kind of spaced out to where, you have larger teams. That way you may have a networking team. Then also you got a security team, where that networking team, they basically configure the network, manages the network, configuring routers and switches, things like that. Also troubleshooting those same devices, troubleshooting any kind of network issues. But then you have the security side, where they're mainly dealing with any kind of malware protection, any kind of incident response, firewalls, things of that nature. So a lot of times the larger organizations, you will see this kind of split up a little bit. So it just depends on where you're going, your location, and things of that nature. Some of the most popular certifications for networking is, of course, the CCNA right now. Like I said, usually if someone's trying to get into networking, that's usually the certification that they're aiming for. Now, there are lower level certifications. By lower level, I mean CCNA is an associate. You do have entry level certifications such as the CCST networking, which is a Cisco product also. And then also you have the Network Plus, which is a CompTIA product. And then on the security side, the most popular certification by far is probably the Security Plus. I believe I was hearing about the Security Plus even before I got into IT. I was hearing about the Security Plus. I ain't even know what it was. And like I said, way before my journey in IT. So that Security Plus, it has to be the most well-known for the security aspect of IT. So you have the Security Plus. Then also with those, you have lower level certifications also. So something like Cisco also has a CCST cybersecurity. So you have things like that. I have seen people come in with maybe like a plus or something, then go to the Security Plus. So there are lower level certifications that you can get along your path, but usually from a security aspect, usually the first certification that folks go after is this Security Plus. So, and also is one of the most recognized for security. So then once someone gets this certification, this Security Plus, then they start to build upon and decide on what path in security they want to go. So it could be basically look at the Security Plus. Everyone starts with that Security Plus most of the time. Then from there, we're going to branch out and see if I want to do network security. Then I may start going down the path, looking at some Palo Alto, some Fortinet, looking into some firewalls. Then, okay, if I want to do internet security, I may start going down, looking at the pen testing route. I may start looking at the application route to cybersecurity. So once we get that stepping stone, which is that Security Plus, then you're able to pivot depending on which route you want to go. So quick pause. I'd like to introduce you to the Log Files. The Log Files is a weekly newsletter to help you start your IT career with practical advice and tips, powered by yours truly. So we launched it in the beginning of the year, packed with actionable advice, resources, and insights to kickstart your IT journey. The link is in the description as well as pinned in the comments. So don't miss out. Now back to the episode. When comparing networking to cybersecurity, I want to focus on some of the daily tasks that one may do in either position, the path to get to one of these positions, and then also the type of work or the work style, and then also the remote potential. So is either of these positions, is it possible for someone to work fully remote in either one of these positions? So first, I would like to look at the daily task. So from a networking perspective, most of the time your daily task is more of your router configurations, switch configurations, monitoring traffic. So it's not every day that you're configuring devices. So most of the time, you could go weeks or months without configuring anything. Unless something breaks or unless something goes down, then you reconfigure that device and go out and replace it. But when you're not configuring devices, if you don't have a new site that's coming up that you need to get ready, a lot of times you're going to be monitoring your network. So you're going to be monitoring traffic. So seeing what's going on your network, look for any anomalies, seeing, if anything different, any slowness, anything like that on your network. So basically doing a lot of housekeeping. So you're going to be doing that housekeeping. And at the same time you're doing this, you're also going to have a ticketing system. So you're going to have tickets that's networking issues that's coming in from other users. So other users may call the help desk. Hey, I'm having this issue. They explain the issue. Help desk determine that, okay, this is an issue that the network team needs to fix. So that help desk will assign that ticket to network, and then that ticket comes in your networking queue. So you'll also have those tickets that you may be working on. And then, like I said, if you're not working on tickets or if you're not monitoring the network, and then there's a slew of other things you could also be doing. So from the networking, like I said, it's one of those positions where it was you didn't know what to expect each day. Every day was different. For me, I remember some days coming in, like I said, you heard before, like some days I would come in, I basically wouldn't see my desk the whole 8 hours. And some days I would come in, it's almost like I'm watching paint dry on the wall. So it's a wide range, which keeps it interesting because you're going to learn a lot, because you're going to see all kind of issues, because issues is being reported from your organization, from regular users that's having issues. All those issues, if it's networking, they'll be coming into your networking team. And then on the cybersecurity side, so usually with cybersecurity, you're going to be doing a lot of monitoring also. So you're monitoring logs, basically scanning the network for vulnerabilities. I know you have different names of these scans, but basically it scans the whole network, gives you a report of the vulnerabilities on your network. Then basically from that cybersecurity perspective, you break up those vulnerabilities and you see who those vulnerabilities belong to. So one of the vulnerabilities could be that, okay, there's a switch on the network or a router on the network and it doesn't have any passwords on it. Or maybe the passwords aren't encrypted, things like that. So this scan is going to spot out a lot of those vulnerabilities against your systems. Then it's up to that security team to divvy those out to whoever owned those products that has those vulnerabilities. So you're going to be doing that. Then also you're going to have someone that's responding to threats. So you got plenty of devices on your network. So you got PCs, you got laptops, you got a slew of other devices, but basically on all those devices, just like at our home, where for me, I run malware bytes a lot. So shout out to malware bytes. If you're listening to this, hit me up. So for this, like I said, I run malware bytes, but in a large enterprise, you're going to have a dedicated software that you have for your virus protection, things like that. So that security team is usually monitoring those. So when they get an alert that this PC down the hallway got a virus, it's up to that security team to start mitigating that issue. You know, that issue could be, oh, let me contact network, and they shut down the port, so that PC is no longer on the network. Then have someone take that PC and get it re-imaged or something of that nature. So the security team, like I said, they handle a lot of responsibility also. And like I said, it goes past just the firewall aspect, the firewall configuration, things like that. There's a lot of things that you normally wouldn't think about that the security team also handles. So if you think about mobile devices, you know, most organizations, they give their user mobile devices. That may be something that falls up under security also. So, but usually the gist of it is that security team is protecting the network while networking is sometimes building that network. And then the typical path that someone may take to get to one of these positions. So speaking from a network perspective, so I've seen people come in at help desk. So for me, I came in like a help desk operations type deal and pretty much went from there to desktop, then to network as a network tech. Like I said, so you have different ways you can get there, but the premise is once you land in networking, whether it's a network tech, network admin, sometimes they may be real similar positions, but once you get your foot in networking, then usually you want to work your way up to, if you come in at a tech, you want to work your way up to administrator. Then from there, you work your way up to an engineer. Then from there, you work your way up to a senior engineer. Then from there, if it goes higher, usually it may be an architect or something along those lines. But basically, that's the path that most people end up going by. So the main thing is with any position you want to do in IT, the main thing is to get your foot in the door first. So I don't care if it's coming in the door sweeping the floor. I don't care if it's coming in the door as a janitor, then get into the IT. But basically getting into that organization, then started to make your way up. Because once you get there, you know, as long as you're a good person, you know, long as you ain't really got no bad tensions between you with no one, you know, long as you're a pretty decent human being, and then also you know your job, you know the tools, you know, you're going out on your own, doing some self-study, you're going out learning things. There's no doubt in my mind that you won't move up to that position. So the main thing is getting in the door first. Then from the cybersecurity aspect, this is somewhat similar. So it is possible to come in at that lower level, come in at a help desk, desktop, anything like that, then work your way to cybersecurity. And then another way that a lot of people get in is they may start out as a SOC analyst. So working at a security operations center. So they may start out as a SOC analyst. Then from there, they go to maybe a security analyst, and then to an engineer, and then to a senior engineer. So a lot of times you probably see some patterns here. So one of the things that you must understand also coming from the outside looking in is the hierarchy. You know how when we're working, I work retail. So I was a retail associate before. Then I had a manager, and then he had a district manager. So it's a hierarchy. So that hierarchy, you got to understand it from the beginning. So once you understand the hierarchy, that's going to better help you to go in and navigate. So the hierarchy to most IT positions is basically that tech and admin. That's usually the first levels. Then from admin, you go to engineer. That's usually the next level. Then from engineer, you move up to senior engineer. And that's usually the last level unless they have architect. But each one of these positions, usually if you look at the job descriptions, most likely they're looking for, from that tech to admin, they may be looking for 1 to 3 years experience and or certifications or a degree. Then from there, you know, it moves up to where it may be 2 to 5 years experience for their next position. But generally, if you're working in that lower position, you'll have those years to move up to that next position. So like I said, you see this with both positions there. But like I said, learning that hierarchy will better help you to navigate the IT industry. And then when we move on to the work style of these two categories. So the work style of networking, a lot of times it's probably more routine based. So basically you'll have different checks that you may do every morning. You know, you may come in, look at some logs, or may come in, look at emails from last night, see if anything went down, any notifications. You may come in, you may have a router that you need to check on every morning to see if you still getting any kind of errors on that router. So it's usually you're going to have a routine, almost like how most of us have a morning routine. You're going to have that same routine in networking where you got different things, different checks that you're going through the start of your day just to make sure that, like, okay, this is where I need to look out for. So in a sense, you're pretty much being more proactive. So you're trying to find issues before they happen and fix them to stop them from happening. So you're going to be looking through logs, looking at whatever you're using to monitor your networking equipment, seeing if there's any crazy errors going on. You're going to be looking at your network utilization, seeing if you're utilizing most of your bandwidth. So you're going to be looking at a lot of those things. So it's going to become part of your checklist. Then on the security side, you know, you're still going to be more routine, except for from the security side, your mindset is to be more reactive to where, okay, you know, you're looking for any kind of anomalies on the network, any kind of viruses on the network. Then once you spot them, you react to them. Basically, you're looking for alerts on your network. So you have different systems, different pieces of software that's going to alert you of different things. So you're basically, from a security perspective, you're more reactive, where from networking, you're more proactive. And then when we break it down to the remote potential, so usually this is a big one for most people because, you know, with the right around the COVID times around there, a lot of people started going fully remote. You know, some people may be still fully remote and don't even know where their job is located at. Well, you know where it's located at, but you've never been in the building. So being able to work remote, like I said, it is a pretty good deal, especially if, you know, if you're an introvert. You know, if you don't care for being around people and stuff like that, you know, being 100% remote is the way to go. But if you're someone like me, I like to kind of meet my team. You know, I joke around a lot, things like that. So me fully remote, I'm not sure in the beginning, I would love it. But after a couple of months, I'd probably start to hate it a little bit. Or I would probably, instead of working from home remote, I would probably start going out to different co-working spaces and doing my work there, where at least I can be around some people. So me, like I said, I like to be around people most of the time. So, but when we look at the remote potential, so from a networking perspective, I would say this is going to depend on your role. So usually from networking perspective, usually someone will be on site. You know, it may be not just one person, maybe more than one person. You may have a rotation where every day of the week, one person works from home, or you could be somewhere where nobody works from home. So basically from that networking perspective, you do have a lot of a large footprint with physical equipment. So basically your equipment is in every closet at your organization. So then also the data center is filled with your equipment. So usually if that equipment goes down, somebody needs to be there in order to replace that equipment. Now, if you stay close by, you know, that may be cool. But most of the time, when you look at networking positions or when you're looking for network positions, usually you very rarely see any kind of remote aspect to it. So unless it's like a hybrid remote where 2 days in, 3 days home, something like that. But then when you get to cybersecurity, so cybersecurity, I will say cybersecurity, there is still a good chance of being remote. I know a couple of folks that work in cybersecurity and they're 100% remote. So being 100% remote, like I said, that's a good deal. But then also with cybersecurity, sometimes you're able to do that. And then this all depends on what side of cybersecurity you're on. So most of the time I see people that's on the information side of cybersecurity to where you may not have no physical equipment. That may be for your network and your network security team. They may be the ones that's managing the firewall. So in that aspect, they may be in a couple of days. But for the most part, a lot of times you see cybersecurity professionals where they're able to work fully remote or mostly remote, some kind of remoteness. They're usually, you know, they're able to do that and still do their job very well. So when it comes down to which is better, technically, now one of them is better than the other. But basically, you just want to see what fits you. Now, I'll tell you from the jump, that you can't know how to protect the network unless you know how a network operates. So that's why I'm a huge proponent for, if somebody tell me they want to get in cybersecurity, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to tell you to learn some kind of networking. I might not say go get a CCNA, but I'm going to tell you to learn some type of networking. So once you learn that type of networking, you know how a network operates. Now it makes it easier for you to transition and learn how to protect the network. Because most people will tell you a lot of the terms you learn in networking, you're going to see those same terms in cybersecurity. So a lot of times I like to say the networking is that foundation of your home, and you building it up with any other thing that you get interested in. So once you got that foundation of networking, then you may say, okay, let me go down this cybersecurity route. You may say, let me go down this virtualization route. You may say, let me go down this Linux route, whatever. So usually, like I said, that's something that you want to kind of be real with yourself. It's one of the things you want to kind of ask yourself, if it's something, do you enjoy problem solving or anything like that? Or maybe do you like more of a detective type deal? So the detective type deal, that's going to be usually in cybersecurity. You're hunting down viruses, trying to see how they got in, things like that. So it all going to depend. I'm not saying that you have to do networking in order to get in cybersecurity. There's plenty of people that's in some sort of cybersecurity role, and they may not know a damn thing about networking. So, and that's totally okay. Saying that's totally okay. But me, I like to say have some kind of network foundation, especially depending on what part of cybersecurity you're trying to get into. So then also some other things you may want to ask yourself, do you prefer more of a hands-on type deal? I can tell you now, networking, you would probably be more hands-on in networking, because in networking, you have a lot of physical pieces of equipment that you're configuring and putting out on the network. So then, some other things you want to ask yourself, are you trying to freelance? Are you trying to do things outside of work? Or are you trying to land a job at a large company? So these are some things to think about before you make your decision. But like I said, now one of them is better than the other. I think they build off each other, especially if you go the networking route. Then after that, you go the cybersecurity route. Now, I have seen some people, like I said, start with cybersecurity, and then they figure out that, oh, I'm a little bit lost from the networking aspect. Then they circle back around and do something like a Network Plus or maybe a CCST network, and just try to lay that foundation, get some of that terminology down. For me, when I first started, so everyone knows my foundation is basically networking. And then at one point when I was in networking, I did start to have an interest in cybersecurity. I wanted to go down the pen testing route. So I started trying to learn myself some Python, looking up different certifications and things like that. That it had my interest. But, I never did transition into cybersecurity, and I never did really pursue a lot of cybersecurity certs. So for me, the only cybersecurity cert I hold right now is the CCST cybersecurity, which is a pretty new cert, but like I said, I did have an interest in it before. And one of the things that made me realize that networking was the way for me was, I remember sitting down with someone and they was asking me, what was my next steps. I said, oh, I want to learn pen testing. And then they made an obvious statement. They was like, well, you can't learn how to protect the network if you don't understand how that network operates. So I went to networking. So that brings me to the end of this episode. Hopefully you found some value in this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, you can follow me at DebtFreeinIT. If you have any questions or comments, you can email me at DebtFreeinIT@gmail.com. Other than that, I'll see you next week. Peace.